welcome very much to How to Raise Money at a Small Nonprofit. My name is Bill. I'll go through just a few quick announcements here for us. Number one, we'd like for you please to mute your microphones. You're doing that already. We appreciate that very much. We will have some time for Q&A at the conclusion of our presentation at 11:45. I've got 3 minutes after 11 right now. We'll do our best to honor your time and do sincerely appreciate you coming and joining us. Very excited about this. This is the first ever presentation by Major Gift Solutions. And so you can consider yourselves a lucky group. Again, we'd love to hear your name. If you've joined us since I started, what is your organization and where are you located? Appreciated seeing a couple of folks tell us, in fact, a word or two about their mission as well. Would love to have you look us up online. My team has been very hard at work this summer, putting us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You can see a lot of our activities there. We keep that up to date. We've also got a very active blog that we keep current, and we'd love for you to come check us out there. We've started a fun Facebook group as well, specifically for fundraisers at small nonprofits. And so we would love to have you check us out there. Put on your calendar, if you could, July 16, 11 a.m. Central, we'll be hosting our next event. And right now we're planning on just simply doing a discussion group. We want to hear from you. Fundraising at a small nonprofit is unique. It's unique in its challenges. It's unique in the roles, the various roles that you have to play, not only as a fundraiser, but as a leader and as a person who works with volunteers, a CFO, lots of different things that you have to do. And so your responsibilities are unique, and we want to hear from you. We want you to have the opportunity to speak with each other, to grow together, and to learn how you can raise money for your mission at your organization. I mentioned the blog series. We've got 4 or 5 posts so far. We've been diligent at posting a new blog every week on Fridays. So please check those out. Our first series is, in fact, how to raise money at a small nonprofit. So you'll find a variety of very practical tips for how you can be involved and successful at raising money for your mission. So thank you again for that. Let me go over what we're going to do over the next 45 minutes. First of all, we'll take just a few minutes to tell you about ourselves, tell you who we are. There are 3 people on our team, and we'll tell you a little bit about what we do by highlighting some of the organizations that we've worked for thus far in the brief life of Major Gift Solutions. And then we'll go into the heart of our presentation, raising money at a small nonprofit. And you'll see here that I've got 4 different bullet points that we will check out together. The basics of fundraising at a small shop, finding donors who will support your mission, writing appeals that motivate giving, and creating a sustainable major gift pipeline. Then we'll conclude with a few words of encouragement, and we'll give you the opportunity to consider next steps, either working with us or on your own, doing some very practical things there as you move forward. So let me begin by telling you a bit about who we are at Major Gift Solutions, and I'll just begin with myself. My name is Bill. I've been in the nonprofit space for all of my working adult life. If you have a minute, you can check out our website, majorgiftsolutions.com, and you'll see there that there's a page, Who is Bill? That's my bio. And you could read more of the details there, but I'll just say briefly that my personal experience, I was raised in a faith-based home. My church experience, my faith life was very important to me. And so in my early career, I was in a lot of faith-based settings. Since then, I've also been in a number of educational settings. And about 10 years ago, I moved full-time into fundraising. I had some very good success in a few different organizations. I was able to receive my PhD in theology. And my first job, in fact, was at Loyola University, Chicago, where I received my PhD. I worked as a major gift fundraiser there and was fortunate to see success in the various areas where I worked. Moved then to a nonprofit called Catholic Extension, where I served again as a major gift officer, and was the first fundraiser in the history of this 110-year-old organization to raise over $1 million from donors in my portfolio. And then now I'm working full-time at a Lutheran progressive seminary here in Chicago in the neighborhood of Hyde Park, just across the street from the University of Chicago, where I oversee their major gifts program. Just this last year, we had a goal of raising $2 million, and we raised over 2.2. A portion of that was $1 million gift that I helped close via Zoom meetings in March of this calendar year, and we were able then to close this fiscal year successfully. So that's who I am. As I mentioned, I've grown my team. Major Gift Solutions is pretty young, and I'll give you a sampling of what we do here in a moment by introducing you to a few of our clients. But I took the initiative to hire a couple of extra people onto my team this summer, and you can see them there. One is my daughter, in fact. This is a family business, Zoe, and then Julia, a good family friend of ours. I'm just going to give them a couple of minutes to introduce themselves, and then we'll get more into the presentation. So Zoe, do you want to go first and tell us who you are?
Hi, everyone. I'm Zoe. I'm a sophomore at the University of Michigan studying computer science. I started the job this summer, and I'm the operations coordinator. So I'm the one that's been sending you all those annoying emails leading up to the webinar and telling you about our blog posts and everything. Fun fact about me, I also work at the ice cream shop next to my house. So that's also been a really fun job to have this summer.
Hi everyone, my name is Julia and I'm the development coordinator at Major Gift Solutions. So my role involves documenting a lot of the outreach that we've done, communicating with our clients, and overall just helping Major Gift Solutions to grow as an organization. It's been a real privilege to work with Bill and Zoe for these last few months, and I've been really inspired by all of the clients that we've gotten to work with thus far. And I'm really excited to see what the next few months hold for us. A little bit about me. I'm a sophomore at the University of Notre Dame. I'm majoring in biochemistry and minoring in innovation and entrepreneurship. And I also played violin in the Notre Dame Symphony Orchestra. So interests are kind of all across the board right now. Still figuring out what I want to do in the future, but I hope that in whatever field I end up, I'm able to be a force for good, just like all of the incredible people and organizations that I'm surrounded with on this Zoom right now. And so, yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys so much for coming, and I hope you enjoy our presentation.
Thanks a lot, Zoe and Julia. Let me tell you a little bit more about what we do at Major Gift Solutions. As I mentioned, we're rather new. So I took the initiative about a year ago to start a side business. Again, my full-time job is at a seminary entitled the Lutheran School of Theology at Chicago. You can look it up. We're a good location. We're very progressive, very involved in a variety of human rights and racial justice. Happy to work there as a full-time fundraiser. On the side, I've started this consulting firm. We'll see what happens in the future if it becomes something more than just on the side. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about what we do by introducing you to a few of our clients, one of whom is on the call right now, Lynn Dominguez. Maybe you can wave, Lynn. I see you there. Good to see you, sir. Just a couple of weeks ago, we helped Lynn, who is the president, the outgoing president of the Rotary Club in a neighborhood called Little Village here in Chicago, put together a race. And this was the first race that this Rotary Club has put together. Lynn called it the Carrera por la Paz, the Race for Peace. And we ended up having well over 300 runners, something like 340. And I think if you included all of our virtual runners, there were around 400, Lynn, and raised lots of money, very successful raising money for anti-violence programs there in this Mexican-American neighborhood in Chicago. We also work with the nonprofit called Reform for Illinois. That's their executive director right there, Elisa Kaplan. They are a political advocacy group. Elisa is a JD and a PhD doing great work, but needed some help raising money. So we've put together a couple of appeals for her, had some very good success reaching out both to Democrats and Republicans, and working on her major gift pipeline as well. And then Open Communities is also a local Chicago advocacy group dealing specifically with homelessness. For Open Communities, I'm serving as a coach. So I provide one-on-one attention to their full-time director of development, Mariah Delaney, and she and I work together. That's a little bit about who we are. Again, at the end of the presentation, we'll open things up so you can ask questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat as well. And Zoe and Julia will stop me if I just am going too fast here. But let's get into raising money at a small nonprofit, the basics of a fundraising shop. That's going to be our first of 4 points here in the heart of our presentation. My first question for you is, again, if you could take part in making some comments in the chat. What are some of your biggest challenges as a fundraiser? I've worked at a couple of different places, different sizes, and also been a volunteer. In fact, helped start a nonprofit, a 501c3. So I've seen the challenges both in larger organizations and at smaller organizations. And at small organizations, those challenges are unique. You have to wear many hats. You are responsible for maybe getting that flywheel of fundraising going. And it's not always easy. So I'm curious, what would you say are some of your biggest challenges? And let's see here. I'm going to see if I can see my chat. Yes, exactly. So I see the first one, biggest challenge, time. One staff person to do about 50 jobs, exclamation point. Lucy, I think we would agree with you there. Pushing donations to the next level. Okay, very good, exactly. Moving people from, say, annual giving to like leadership level of $1,000 or more, or a 5-figure gift. General contributions, okay. Networking, donor response and retainment, very good. And trying to reach new categories and groups of donors. Excellent. Okay, thank you everyone for your participation there. And again, feel free to drop your questions into the chat. In this area of the basics of a fundraising shop, I'm going to contextualize what I'll say here by telling you that you should have as your goal to generate regular and sustainable revenue for your nonprofit. You're doing awesome work. We all know that. It's amazing what you're doing. It is inspirational. I hope you know that, and I hope you can remember it as you're telling your potential donors what they can support. But in order for you to continue doing that good work, frankly, you need the cash. And so you need strategies to generate regular and sustainable revenue for your nonprofit. In my mind, there are essentially 3 virtues then that you can bring to the table as your director of development or executive director at your nonprofit: diversity, longevity, and consistency. And I'm talking specifically here about the manner in which you raise money. So when we're talking about diversity, you need a diverse approach, not merely raising major gifts, and not merely doing annual gifts, not merely doing email solicitation, and not merely doing mailed solicitation. You need a broad net that you are casting to get as many sources of revenue as you can. I'll also tell you that it doesn't happen immediately. You need to be in it for the longer haul. It might take 18 to 24 months for your board, frankly, to begin seeing a real return on the investment, either in your salary or in the salary of, say, a consultant or a contractor, or say putting together a mailed appeal, things like that. And so you need to be consistent as well as you are moving down this long road of fundraising activity. Let me ask you here, before I get into some of the components of a successful fundraising shop, what do you feel is the most important activity for you to do as a fundraiser? There are a dozen things you could do every day when you wake up and you look at your responsibilities. What is the most important activity for you to do? Let me see if I can check some of those out in the chat here. Let's see. Lucy said engaging donors, probably a challenge as well. Stewardship from Vanessa. Adam says framing who we are persuasively. I agree very much with that. And Adam, we actually have talked about that. Building and stewarding relationships. Building relationships, Grace says as well. Making personal connections and getting our mission and services out to our community. Ashley says, prioritizing my long-term and short-term goals every day. That is balancing between what needs to happen now and what needs to happen in the future. I'll often use the word triage when I'm thinking about my responsibilities every day. It feels like I'm almost constantly in triage mode, determining what is urgent, what's an emergency, and what needs to be fixed right now. Be consistent in follow-up calls. Amen, my friend Lynn, very good. And keeping in touch with prospective donors. Very much appreciate that. Well, if I were to say to you, here are 4 activities that you can put, let's call it in your, maybe your annual plan or your 5-year plan. What are the categories that you can put together to make sure that you have a successful fundraising program and that you can indeed raise those dollars that will advance your mission? I would tell you these 4 things. Number 1, you got to use the mail. Number 2, you got to use electronic communications. Number 3, you need to complement what you're doing in those first 2 categories by finding those bigger gifts. And number 4, you need to have what I decided to call here an airtight stewardship strategy. We'll get into that here in a minute. Let's dig more deeply into each of those 4 categories. Number 1, mailed solicitations. This is kind of an ongoing discussion with folks in a couple of boards that I'm on. Is it worthwhile to send folks snail mail? If you ask me, it's a strong yes. Kind of like country music and fried okra, and I'm a dude from Tennessee. Both of those things are very near and dear to my heart. Direct mail might be old. It might be part of a kind of culture, but it is not obsolete. And you can see that in various success rates that can be attested to by various nonprofits. You need to be able to send out your mailing so that you can create sustained philanthropic revenue at your organization. And in fact, you should budget for, in my mind, 4 mailed solicitations each year. Now, those don't all have to go to the same groups of people. It might be that you have a couple of different acquisition mailings where you are, in fact, casting a larger net than you had previously. And we'll get into some ways that you can find new donors, but you need to go ahead and use direct mail to reach folks. They do reply. I worked, in fact, with Reform for Illinois to send out about 2,000 mailed appeals. We got 20 in response. And in fact, that is a typical response rate. You need to plan on something like 1% or less of a response rate in an acquisition appeal. And for that reason, you need to be doing them on a regular basis. You need to be casting a big net. And you need to be always having, in my mind, a new solicitation in the pipeline. I threw up a picture here of a Monopoly board because I was just playing Monopoly with my youngest daughter, Liliana, the other day. I happened to win, not bragging. She's 11. She's a very worthy opponent. But my strategy was slightly different from Liliana's. When she crosses go and gets that $200, she likes to put it right under the board and see her $100 bills kind of stack up, or as she calls them, hundies. She likes to see those hundies stack up. When I get a hundie, I like to turn around and invest it in property, because the property is what is going to be an investment that will return for me. You need to be doing the same kind of thing, that is investing in the future of your nonprofit, taking a risk, taking a calculated risk to go ahead and spend that money for the direct mail. Know that you're going to be sending a lot. You might not get the response that you thought, but if you do that over a sustained period of time, you will indeed find success. I see that we've got a chat listed here. What does a good response look like from Lynn? And Lynn, let me answer your question here. After I ask people this question, I want you to help me out. True or false, is direct mail dead? Take a minute to let me know your response to that question, and I've probably led you to a particular answer. I see a couple there from Lucy and Mary. Lynn, what does a good response look like? Again, industry standard is 1% or less for an acquisition appeal. So literally, if you send out 2,000 letters, you might expect 20 responses back, and that would be very typical for a nonprofit direct mail appeal. But what might happen, as did with Reform for Illinois, was that you would get, say, $1,000 donation from a person who lines up very well with the mission of your organization. And they happen also to be the executive director of a foundation that has to give away tens of thousands of dollars every year. They wouldn't have given you that tens of thousands of dollars just in response to something in the mail, typically speaking, but you wouldn't have known about them, or they wouldn't have known about you if you wouldn't have taken the risk of going ahead and sending that mail piece. And it looks like we're kind of in agreement here about whether or not direct mail is dead. I will advocate for the fact that it is indeed an important piece of your fundraising puzzle. Let's move quickly here to electronic solicitations. Again, what you want to do is be diverse in your ways of asking. So you have about 4 appeals per year, sending out maybe to different constituencies there in those 4, paying attention to who's already given, who has not, and then supplement that electronic solicitation by using, supplement that mailed solicitation by using electronic solicitations. And the key here is keep a steady flow of asks in the communication pipeline. So if you got a mailer kind of out in the post office and it'll be in people's homes in the next 2 to 4 weeks, get ready, get working on that email that you're going to send, or go ahead and send an email now and begin working on your next appeal. And I will warn you, it might take anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks to put that thing together between the time you begin working on it and it actually gets in people's homes. So you want to be thinking ahead, continuing to buy that property on the monopoly table so you continually have asks in front of people, continually have new sources of income that can then drive the mission of your nonprofit. A little extra credit here for you, if you're going to be doing electronic solicitations, is to be consistent in the messaging between those various media. So you've got your mail that you send out, maybe from a board member. You got a picture of this person talking about their father who founded this school, and boy, my dad really was great, and this and that. Well, you send that in the mail. When you send out your email, put that board member's picture on there as well. Have the same messaging in that electronic communication, and then you will have consistency between the two. All right, so we got mail, we got electronic solicitation, major gifts. And I think it's no secret that we know this is an important part of your fundraising success. A major gift donor is one of those lead donors who helps bring in approximately 80% or more of the revenue for your nonprofit. And really today, we have to correct that 80-20 principle by saying that it's more like 5% of your donors will give upwards of 95% of the dollars that you need to sustain your mission. How do you work with these donors? Well, I'm going to get more in a minute into the details of how you can find them. For now, suffice it to say that you want to begin the process of putting together a 4-step major gift pipeline. Qualifying major gift donors, that means finding who they are and where they are. After you introduce yourself to them and begin a relationship, cultivate that relationship with them, kind of like tilling up the ground so that they would be open to an ask from you. Go ahead and in a timely and appropriate manner, make that ask through a solicitation. Hopefully you land the gift and you can begin to steward them, thanking them for their donation. And then when the life cycle is complete, you qualify them again. Maybe they'll make another gift. That is how you work with major gift donors. That's my area of expertise. It was really the kind of beginning vision for Major Gift Solutions. We found that working with small nonprofits, their needs are much bigger than this. So this is where we can help in a lot of ways, but our services also go beyond major gift outreach, and we'll get more into detail here in just a minute. The last thing I'll say about the basics of a fundraising shop for you is that you need to have an airtight stewardship strategy. And I've just put together a few questions here. I think I've got 4 or 5 for you to think about. Stewardship is so important. You hear it in the business world that it costs twice, 3 times, 4 times as much to get a new customer as it does to keep existing customers. It's the same in the world of fundraising. So you want to keep those donors who are already a part of your community, and you want to keep them by making sure they feel appreciated. As you think about just simply the letters that you send out when a donor makes a gift for tax purposes, how long does it take for you to send that acknowledgement letter? Does that acknowledgement letter actually inspire them? Is there something related to your mission in the acknowledgement letter, or is it just words on your letterhead? Is there a picture on there? Is it pleasing to look at? And does it make your donors feel appreciated? I'll close this first portion of the presentation by telling you a story about Jimmy. Jimmy was a gentleman at one of the organizations where I worked earlier in my fundraising career, retired priest, businessman, very successful international consultant, and an author who had written a book that was in its 10th edition being used in college level classes. He had plenty of money to give away. He was very connected to the mission of this organization, and he had been around for a long time. He was also really good at charitable gift annuities, at finding CGAs that gave a big return. And so, in fact, Jimmy, probably about 40 years ago, had bought a CGA, paid about $100,000 for it, but the organization where I worked had ultimately paid Jimmy over the years about $120,000. So his charitable gift annuity was actually in the red. My boss came into my office one day and said, "Bill, we need you to go talk to Jimmy, take him out to lunch, tell him his CGA is in the red, and see if he'll give us more money." So I had that unenviable job of going to try to communicate this with Jimmy. He didn't appreciate it. In fact, he raised his voice during our lunch. He kind of gave a token pound on the table. He told me he did not feel appreciated, and he walked away from our lunch. I did not get a gift. I didn't know what was going to happen there. Well, I stayed in touch with Jimmy, sent him a few notes along the way. I'd invite him to events. We stayed in touch. I was reading a book that he had recommended, etc. Stayed in touch. I was gently persistent. Long story short, after about a year, Jimmy ended up giving a $300,000 downtown Chicago condominium to the organization where I worked, putting his CGA in the black and making my boss and the other people at this organization very happy. The lesson there was that over the years, Jimmy had basically been neglected by other fundraisers. They saw that his charitable gift annuity was heading more and more towards the red, that we were going to go into debt, trying to pay him these quarterly payments for having invested that $100,000 40 years ago. But they didn't take the time simply to appreciate him. Once Jimmy felt appreciated by me, that was when his tune began to change, and he did indeed reinvest and made a difference there. So I'm curious here, and I see there's another question from Lynn. I'm curious, what strategies do you use to help your donors feel appreciated? Take a minute and place in the chat strategies that you use to make sure your donors feel appreciated. Lynn is asking, should the messaging be general or specific to the next event? And I would say that it depends on what you are trying to accomplish here, Lynn. If you're raising money for an event like a race, then in that instance, we'd be very specific. If it's more for, say, a Rotary Club, you're going to relate your wording to the mission of the Rotary Club. What strategies do you use to help your donors feel appreciated? Love to hear your thoughts on that. All right. Where are we in our agenda? We've told you about who we are. We've told you about what we do. We started the basics of a fundraising shop. I gave you those 4 categories there. Let's move now into some ideas for finding donors who will support your mission. And we'll move through the rest of our presentation after that. finding donors who will support your mission. You can find the details of this portion of the presentation on our blog, and I encourage you to go check that out. Here, you're going to get 5 ways that you can find new donors, and they're just very broad, based, frankly, on lots of conversations that I've had with people that I'm working with as a consultant, and also personal experience raising money for nonprofits. Number 1, cast a big net, bigger than you think you need to. I've already gone into some of those numbers for what counts as a successful acquisition appeal. Think big. Number 2, get historic. As you're trying to collect names, so you can cast a big net, look back in the archives of your database and find people who loved that executive director 2 executive directors ago. Whoever that was, who was a kind of icon in the neighborhood. They all loved this person, and she's retired now. Let's go back and find those people. They loved her, but maybe they also love our mission, and we can continue to get them involved. Make sure you are using all of the mailing lists that your nonprofit has. It's always curious to me that even at a small nonprofit, you might have this person over here who's a program officer with their email list, and you have this person here who's doing more of the marketing, and they've got their email list, and then you got the newsletter that goes out from this board member, and they've got their email list. Aggregate it, combine them, boost your footprint by making sure you're including everyone. Ask for help. Go to your board members, set aside time at a board meeting to have your board members jot down a few names of people that they think would be good for reaching out to. And then finally, look outside your organization. There's a variety of ways you can do this. There is information that's public. It's public, say, for example, from the Federal Election Commission. Donations to political organizations are publicly available for anyone to find on the internet. And so you could look, for example, at people who are supporting political movements that are similar to the mission of your organization. Perhaps you can look at annual reports of organizations that have a similar mission to yours. Annual reports in which they actually will list donors who supported their organization over the last year. Might take a little bit of digging to find addresses and contact information, but you can do that. You can also look and or attend events. Say a school is having a big gala, say like a local high school, a private high school is having a big gala, and there are certain families in your community that buy a table. Take a look at the brochures, the programs from those events, find those donors who gave to that organization, and you can grow your list as well. So I'm curious again, what strategies have you used to find new donors? In fact, we've got a question from Sherry. Sherry is very ambitious. She started a new nonprofit. How does she go about building a donor list? And then it looks like we may have addressed her question. It's a great question, Sherry. And I think that implementing some of these strategies that I've discussed here would be a start. Otherwise, it would be continuing conversations with a variety of people around you, thinking big, always thinking ahead, and doing your best to think outside the box. All right, so here we are on our agenda. We're about 3/4 of the way through. Let's move now toward writing appeals that motivate giving. We talked about the fact that you need to use both mail and email, but how exactly can you write good appeals? I'll direct your attention again to our blog, so make sure you check that out. Post number 3 I called The Anatomy of a Successful Appeal Letter. It was kind of like, if you will, the skeleton of a successful appeal letter, the material. What does it look like? What kind of packaging do you use? What kind of stamp do you use? Variable data, working with a printer, things like that. But for right now, for the next couple of minutes, let's talk about those more formal aspects of the letter. Writing an appeal, and I believe I have maybe 3 or 4 bullet points here as well. First of all, I would encourage you to focus on the face of your organization. there's a Lithuanian-born philosopher whom I like a lot, Emmanuel Levinas, a Jewish philosopher, who turned metaphysics, if you know anything about philosophy, metaphysics has to do with a theory of everything. Levinas turned metaphysics into ethics, and he did so by pointing our attention to the face. Levinas, a Jew, had been through suffering. He lived in the 1900s in Europe. He knew what it was like to suffer. But he also knew that the face made a certain demand on the person. You think about when you're driving through traffic and you're really angry at that car next to you. If you pull up next to the car and you see the face of the person driving that car, it makes a kind of different dynamic between you and the car. It becomes more personal. It's harder to say no. And Levinas said that demand the face puts on you as a Jew, he said it's captured in the command, thou shalt not kill. There is an ethical component to the face. Bring the face of your organization into your appeal letters. What is the good that you are doing? On that note, don't assume your donors feel the same sense of duty that you feel. You're in a leadership position at your organization. You wake up in the morning thinking about your organization. Your donors wake up in the morning thinking about their kids or maybe their grandkids and what they want to do with their day. Tap into their imagination. Think about the manner in which Martin Luther King drew from the religious terminology of his background to motivate an entire nation to make a major shift in the civil rights movement, regardless of the religious identities of those people. Tap into their imagination. Keep it positive. Don't use guilt. Become more emergent. Don't think in terms of a zero-sum game. Think in terms of positivity and motivate your donors in that way. And finally, I'll say, tell a compelling story. I've got some fun pictures of some beautiful pets here. When I lived in Omaha, a friend of mine invited me to a dedication ceremony for an animal shelter. And I went. I love animals, but I didn't feel any connection to this particular shelter. I went to support him. So I was kind of just going through the motions. Well, the executive director of this particular animal shelter stood up, made some presentation, and began to tell the stories of 3 pets who had changed the lives of humans. She told the story of a Labrador who had rescued her owner from this hiking trip gone bad. She told the story of a pit bull who had helped a young man deal with autism. And she told the story of a cat who had helped an elderly lady deal with depression. And I found myself, I kid you not, tearing up. I was crying at this dedication ceremony for an animal shelter because the executive director knew how to connect to my heart and to connect to the inspiration and the face of the organization. So let me ask you to put in the chat there, what makes a good appeal? What makes a good appeal to you? What makes you open an appeal? We all receive those. There's from the YMCA, Habitat for Humanity, the local public radio station. What makes a good appeal to you? Love to hear from you in the chat. All right, finishing up with the kind of meat of our presentation, and that is getting into creating a sustainable major gift pipeline. And Nancy Lee, I see that you want to know that your money is being wisely used. Definitely agree with you there. How to create a sustainable major gift pipeline. Let's talk about that. Number one, you want to find those people who represent 3 qualities. They have an affinity with your organization. That means they align with the mission of your organization philosophically. They have capacity to give. That is, they possess a certain amount of wealth that would allow them to give at a leadership level. Now, let me make sure that I'm qualifying this. I'm not talking about the Bill Gateses and the Oprah Winfreys and the Bezos of the world. I'm talking here about people who may simply be a salesperson, maybe an educator, maybe a business owner who's retired, who has maybe a decent retirement account, and in fact has to give away some of their retirement money for tax purposes. You're looking for people who are maybe upper middle class plus. They have the capacity to give $1,000 or more every year. And finally, that they have a philanthropic tendency. It doesn't matter if they have a lot of money if, number one, they don't appreciate your organization, and maybe they're stingy with it. And there are ways in which you can discern that as you get to know your donors. But those are the three qualities you're looking for. I'd again advise you to check out our website. I've got an ebook that's available there via PDF, ways in which you can find the donors who are already in your database who could give at a major gift level. So be sure you check that out. And then I summarized that. In fact, Zoe helped me summarize that. 6 tips for finding the major gift donors you already have. I encourage you to check that out. And Zoe has dropped the link to the ebook there in the chat. Let me begin with this very, hopefully not too simplistic claim. It is true in my experience. The very first thing you want to do as you are trying to find those major gift donors who can support you at a higher level is simply to follow the money. What I mean by that is follow recent cash giving. And I saw Tim was on the call here. Tim, in fact, worked with me at the Lutheran School of Theology. This is something we did all the time. You're looking at donations from the last few fiscal years. Here's a visual to help you understand what I'm talking about. We would literally pull a list of donors. Say if Tim was going to put together a trip to the state of Texas, we would pull all the donors from the state of Texas, and we would look at their giving from each of the last 5 fiscal years, FY 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. Sum it there in column R, creating a 5-year total, and then simply do a top-down ranking. You could do the same thing with your database, even if your database only has, say, I don't know, 300 people in it. You can find those people who have supported you at a higher level. Follow recent cash giving, because where there are big gifts, there are often bigger gifts. You can also follow other indicators. I lined these out in the ebook that Zoe has put in the chat. Those who have given you planned gifts. Again, you want to be thinking about those who may have a retirement account and are looking to, in fact, offload some of their money. Anybody who has made a pledge in the past, anybody who's given at $1,000 or more each year. Gifts of odd values, they come in and it's valued at $1,236. Maybe that was, maybe it was a stock donation. Maybe it was a donation that came from someone's estate. Maybe there's more there. So you want to be looking at those as well. All right, I'm curious here as we're wrapping up on the kind of heart of our presentation. Tim, thank you for the support. What strategies, this is, I think, the last chat question I have for you. What strategies do you use to close 4- and 5-figure gifts at your organization? Are there strategies you use? Do you have donors who give you gifts that are that large? Tell us about it in the chat, if you could do that. Well, let me just wrap up with a few concluding thoughts. Keep the main thing the main thing. That is, remember, you are doing important work. Don't forget that. And on that note, don't apologize for your mission. You may not be as big as the nonprofit down the street. Maybe your animal shelter is just a couple of years old. The other one has been around for 50. What you're doing is important work that is great. Don't apologize for it. And don't be afraid to ask. Go ahead and take the risk of scheduling the visit, sending out the solicitation, and making an opportunity for your donors to get involved. I did have one final chat I wanted to ask you, a question I wanted to ask, and that is on this last note of not being afraid to ask. You know, we looked back at 2020 and it was the year of a global pandemic, the year of the coronavirus, and we often heard that nonprofits were struggling because of this. Counterintuitive, giving nationally did not exactly follow the trends that we often hear. Vanessa has seen this as well. This report, Giving USA, from the Indiana University Lilly School of Philanthropy, just came out literally earlier this week. And you can see here that in every category, giving by individuals, foundations, by bequests and corporations, I'm sorry, 3 out of 4 categories went up, and the total giving went up as well. But you can see here, individuals went up 2.2%, foundations went up 17%, giving by bequests went up a full 10%. The point here, without getting into too many of the details here of this particular report, you can find it online there at givingusa.org. The point here is to say that, again, it's not a zero-sum game. There are opportunities for you to grow your organization and to grow your mission. Don't be afraid to ask. Be gently persistent, using all of these different components that we have talked about. And don't forget that you can do it. The last thing I'll say is that we are here, Major Gift Solutions. I've kind of mentioned some of our services, one-on-one coaching. Love to talk to you about that. Also happy to do a kind of one-time consulting report. Done that before for nonprofits as well. And then we could also present a kind of ongoing partnership. In fact, that's what we found is our bread and butter. A lot of smaller nonprofits, they kind of need part-time help, basically. They can't afford to hire a full-time fundraiser. They might be able to set aside a few $1,000s here and there to have someone basically do part-time fundraising, be a part-time director of development. That's what we found is the way that we can help organizations the most. I would be thrilled to speak with you about that. And Zoe and Julia have put together some ways for you to get in touch with us. Zoe did drop the link to my Calendly in the chat, so you can check that out if you want to. And then finally, we've got these other ways that you can get to know us through Facebook, our blog series, the ebook, and again, we're here via email anytime. All right, I'm going to stop my screen share. And thank you. I'm going to thank you again for your attention and for your participation. It was such a pleasure to have you here, both I know nationally and locally. Vanessa, I know you're here in Chicago, correct? I'm going to put you on the spot. So thanks everyone for being involved. Let me just open it up. And Zoe and Julia, let me go to you first. Did I miss anything? Do you want to say anything before we open it up to the rest of the participants?
I think you pretty much covered it.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Does anyone have a question they want to ask about anything that was presented or thoughts, reactions?
Nancy Lee Wood, I have a question.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi. If you have, our problem is we do not have a lot of time because the work of the organization is really being propelled forward and time is very, very minimal. How do you maximize your time use that you can devote to fundraising?
Right. Well, you could consider hiring a part-time consultant who could help out. So I would say that, but it's incremental. It's incremental. You're starting with your board. I would say that you start by making sure that those who are already involved know about the various opportunities to give and that you are speaking with them very candidly about your needs. So you're maximizing their giving, and then you go from there. Who is the next level of people who support your organization? Are there friends that you already have involved? Have you reached out to them? How often are you reaching out to them? And there is often that I've found a kind of sweet spot. If you're a brand new organization, your appeal might be 50 letters that you send out. And you try to do 50 at a time, maybe once every couple of months, and see if that creates sustainable revenue. And then you would just incrementally grow from there. But I would say you kind of start with that inner circle and expand. Are there any thoughts from the gallery either on that, or does anyone have another question? Let's see, Adam. I saw Adam and then Lynn, and then we'll go Paula.
My
Thanks,
question is, when you become our part-time development department, what do you do and what do we do?
Yes, excellent. So it is, I would say, an ongoing conversation. I can give you just examples from the people that we've worked with
Yeah.
thus far. I will come with ideas, but I will also come to listen. So it would be inappropriate for an outside consultant to come into your organization, even if that person has lots of experience, and just to kind of impose a strategy on your organization, because every organization, like every human, is somewhat unique. It's a human organization. So we would want to, as we come with a few ideas, some of these strategies basically that I've lined out here, we would want also to listen. To hear what you've used thus far, what has worked, what can we capitalize on, and what might we need to shift a bit so we can maximize the fundraising potential moving forward. But things that I would offer, I mean, I've both written appeals that then are approved by an executive director, or I've sat back and let the executive director write them. I've written email solicitations that I've sent to an executive director, which just end up in cyberspace somewhere. And then I get an email that is a totally different solicitation written by the executive director. So I maybe kind of urging, prodding. There's a kind of timeliness helping with the development plan. In fact, meeting with boards. I've done that a couple of times to provide. In fact, I've done that with all of my clients, meeting with their various boards. Boards want to know that you're spending your fundraising budget well. They want to see a kind of plan. They want to make sure that the bank account matches with what the fundraisers say is happening. And so I would help you put those types of things together as well. Very much a kind of partnership is what I'd say.
Partly what was behind that question is what might you be taking off our plate in practical terms? So Nancy said time. And so it sounds like one thing that could happen is you're putting more on my plate.
Oh, right. Yes.
Even though it might be productive.
Yes. Right. Right. Well, again, that would come out, I think, in the dynamics of the working relationship. I mean, if the initial conversation was, okay, Bill, we don't have any time to give to fundraising, but we need to raise, I don't know, we need to try to raise $100,000 this next year.
Month.
Join the club. So that would just be kind of part of the original plan.
Okay.
I'd say, okay. And then I've got my my team here with Zoe and Julia. We take it and run with it. And then we would just have a partnership that would be appropriate for that. But it would be creating all four of those components that I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So mail, email, stewardship, and then even the major gift portion as well. Now, the major gift portion, as a part-time development consultant, you know, the wealthy foundation owner in downtown Boston may not just easily take a meeting with some random guy from Chicago. But our team could help pave the way for you, Adam, to go in front of that person and do your vision casting and share about the amazing work that Biodiversity for a Livable Climate does.
So it's not like investing in the stock that's going to take off. I'm just kidding.
Hopefully over the long run, there would be a better return. Yeah, that would actually be a goal. Let me see if I can move to Lynn now, and then Paula, I see too, and I want to make sure I honor everyone's time. But Lynn, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just want to say that for me, having just finished a pretty successful race for our first time through our Rotary Club, I worked with Bill. He was recommended to me by a friend, mutual friend. Had no idea what to expect, but basically it started slowly with a one-on-one, 1 hour every couple of weeks session, and kind of guiding me to focus on not just my mission and the race, but my own capacity to fundraise. I mean, over the years, I'm probably a little older than you, young man, but still over the years, I've built a lot of friendship, a lot of relationships, a lot of contacts. I have my desk right now full of about 400 cards that I shuffle around now and then, depending on the issue that I'm trying to raise money for. I'm also president of the local Boys and Girls Club. So that's a different events that we throw there. I get some cards for that. I meet people and I say, do you want to go to the artist show for Boys and Girls Club? They say, sure, put me on. I'll take their card. So again, those are kind of things I group together. However, I've taken courses on how to raise money. I've taken those events on fundraising, etc. But what Bill did with me was help me focus and start to put together my contacts on a spreadsheet, and then work together on an appeal letter, and then help me do the work. It does take some work on your part. No one's going to do it for you, I must say. Can't really be done for you without your input of making those calls and doing a follow-up email to those potential people that I had met, didn't know that well, but a personal email which follows the written appeal does more than just, they can't do that for you. You're the person that person, your contact knows. They want to hear from you. So whether it be a personal email and then a follow-up phone call, you have to put that effort in. I'm sorry. It's going to take, you have to schedule that time in. Busy as you are, busy organization, you put that time in 1-2 hours a week. And then it becomes maybe half an hour a day, something. You have to schedule it in. That will make the difference whether you're successful or not, in my estimation.
Well, Lynn was great to work with. I mean, I think that, in that instance, and this is what has happened with other clients, and I'm happy to share more of this with any of you via one-on-one, but it would often begin as more of a coaching relationship. So in fact, I've got, 5 or 6 things I put on the website about ways that a coach can help: accountability, regularity, organization, the very things Lynn is saying. But what I found with all of the clients I've worked with is that ultimately they just need more than a one-on-one coach. So the partnership is increased a bit. And then I bring my team to do the things that I've seen work at other places and just kind of run the fundraising shop. Let's see here. We're at 11:59. I would love to stay on as long as anybody wants to. Tim, great to have you. Thanks so much for coming. And so you're welcome to stay on as long as you want. Please do reach out. If you want to hop off, please do that. Feel free to do so. But I'm going to stay on now until everybody who wants to ask a question has had a chance to do that. And I'm going to have Zoe go ahead and stop the recording. All right, good.